As the second week of free agency officially opens, the Miami Dolphins, they added a cornerback. Much needed at that, but we will discuss it because that signing leads further into the title of today's video. Have the Miami Dolphins become status quo in free agency? We will also discuss the Rosenhaus report that they are still interested in bringing back Ogbah and Jeff Wilson Jr. See what I just previously said about being status quo? We will talk about it all. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you are new. And as always, let's get into this.
Loses the football. Touchdown! Got it! You have got to be kidding me. Jalen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown. And he will score! Field on the near side, man open. Touchdown! The run from Tua Tagovailoa. Touchdown! He's going deep. It's going over the touchdown again.
Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. Let's go! What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason. We're back here for another one as second week of free agency officially opens up, and we got a lot to talk about. I got some takeaways from today. I got to talk about the Dolphins with you guys. Also, Patreon's channel members. I dropped the update last night in the wee hours of the morning. Patreon members, I was having problems with the upload of the video. It was stuck on processing, but I figured it out. The video is now up, and I've taken down the written report on Patreon, so you guys now have the video format. The written report is found on YouTube under the community post for channel members only. So go ahead. There's some free agency rumblings I've heard, some combine stuff in there. Go check it out if you are a channel member or a Patreon. That is live, and if you're a Patreon, it's like a 20-minute video, so enjoy some extra content your way. Man, we got some stuff to talk about, but listen. Let's start off with a few things. Number one, I got to talk about it because I'm like... Azeez Ojulari is signing with the Eagles on a 1-year, $4 million deal. Are you serious? You're telling me we couldn't do this? You're telling me we couldn't make this out? $4 million. $4 million. That's it. We're going to talk about it later, but you're in the market, from what we understand, for a pass rusher you had last year that's going to be 32 this year and made about $750,000 more than what Azeez Ojulari is getting paid from an annual average salary standpoint. Like, come on, man. Come on, man. I had this guy on my list. This is $4 million. Man, I'm such a believer in, I'm just going to say it. If you haven't figured it out yet, figure it out. I am a huge believer in Anthony Weaver. Massive believer in Anthony Weaver. I was before he he got his hands in the mud. When I saw what he did with my boy Chop, I'm a believer in this guy. You're telling me you couldn't give an Azeez Ojulari to Weaver? He would have outproduced that $4 million, especially given Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips' injury history. A developing Azeez Ojulari and a developing Chop Robinson under Anthony Weaver. That's got me licking my chops. Man, I think this was just such an easy home run signing. He didn't break the bank. But, I mean, what are we doing here? You know, we're circling the wagon, doing the old stuff, thinking we're going to get, 110%. 110%. Azeez Ojulari set the Giants franchise record for sacks by a rookie in a single season. Yeah, bro. 110. I'm sorry. I like Kamara, but he ain't Azeez, baby. 25 years old. That kind of upside. Had 6 sacks last year. And let's be honest, he hasn't got great coaching in New York. Man, you saw how Chop was improving at setting the edge by the end of the season because of good coaching from Anthony Weaver and his staff. That's where Azeez didn't get the coaching. That's where Azeez, and I think he still got room to grow, against the run. But that's where the coaching would have came in. I'm telling you, man. Think about this. 25 years old. You would have signed him for 1 year, $4 million. You would have had Chop under contract, Kamara. Jalen gets hurt again. You're not forced to give him a contract. Chubb, let him walk in 2026 if Azeez Ojulari shows upside, and then you could re-sign Azeez Ojulari. And all of a sudden, it's contingency plans, man. Like, that's it. So, I don't know, man. I that's a move I would have made. I thought that was an easy move. I think it's, I think that would have helped out a lot, especially given the injury history you're dealing with off that edge. And, I've heard, listen, speaking of snaps, I've heard, and I have this in my Patreon and my channel member update. Part of the thing I've heard regarding Chop too, and speaking of these edges, they don't want a guy like Bradley Chubb stunting the development of Chop Robinson. Like, Bradley Chubb would not be here unless he took that massively reworked contract. He would not be here. So it looks like it's going to be a Jalen Phillips and Chop special with Bradley Chubb in rotation. And then if Bradley Chubb takes off, obviously he's going to earn more snaps. Like if you start, sacking everyone and their mother, you're going to earn more snaps and you're going to get a higher snap count. But man, and again, we'll talk about, they're looking at bringing back a familiar name anyways. I think this would have been a better deal with higher upside. I really do. But sticking with it, let's stick with the draft a little bit. A day some of us have been waiting for, who are fans of the new new receiving core coming out of the draft. Tet McMillan had his pro day today. He ran the 40-yard dash, and now he lined up at he measured at 6'4", 219. But the 40-yard dash is all over the place. Jordan Schultz reported that Tet McMillan ran a 4.48, right? But then you got other reports coming out of hand times and people saying they talked to teams and they got 4.54, 4.55, in that range. So this is ranging from a 4.48 to a 4.55, but it's a pro day 40. So it makes sense that it's in the 4.5s. I wouldn't, 4.48 at a pro day isn't 4.48 at a combine. Let's put it that way, right? So, but again, he's a big body guy. How many guys, you got to think about like Randy Moss. How many guys are running 4.2s at 6'4"? Chase Claypool ran, and how did that work out for him? But, when you look at 6'5" guys that ran, a fast 40, you're talking about like Calvin Johnson, and like the list is very, very slim. So 4.5s, low 4.5s, that's a pretty good time for Tet, considering his body size, his build, etc., etc. I'm a big fan of Tet McMillan, as people have known. Now, I don't think they'll take him at 13. I do think he'll be on the board because I think he's one of the people that has been overthought in this process. I think there's a few. And remember, Drake London ran a 4.5, so and they're similar build, but I think they've got bigger fish to fry than Tet McMillan. Obviously, I think, hey, if you're gonna move off of Tyreek, that's the guy I'd be trying to draft to fill in, because that gives you that big body opposite of Waddle, as in a as a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 1 role. So, and wide receiver 2 behind Waddle, I think would be absolutely ideal for Tet McMillan in Miami, but I don't expect them to make that move. Like I've been saying, I think it's going to be Will Johnson, Kenneth Grant, or if Will Campbell or Armand Membo slip with maybe Kelvin Banks as a sleeper in there. Those seem like the 3 biggest outcomes at 13 right now. Now, I have said, look out for a deep sleeper like a Jalen Walker who can play edge, or he can play on the second level as a strong side linebacker. It gives you that multi-level versatility. That's a guy. I do think they would take Malachi Starks over Nick Emmanuel, given the tape, right? Like, I think Nick Emmanuel, when it comes to like their game, Starks is more refined, more polished. So, I do think they'd go Malachi there, but, a lot of options. They've left themselves a lot of options, but I don't think they're going to go safety. I don't think they're going to go receiver. I think it has to be Will Campbell or Armand Membo on the board at 13 for them to consider linemen. Maybe they fall in Kelvin Banks, but I think those top 2 would make more sense. I honestly think it's Will Johnson or Kenneth Grant. That's their apple of their eyes and who they're hoping are there at 13. So, the draft, baby, it's upon us. I'll be dropping my first big board this week. I will be dropping defensive tackle. My first 3 big boards have been decided. I'll drop defensive tackle first, and then I'll drop either guard and then cornerback, or cornerback and then guard. Let me know in the chat. Would you rather see cornerback first and then guard, or guard first and then cornerback? Let me know in the chat. I'll let you guys decide. If there's an overwhelming consensus towards one or the other, I'll go with that. But defensive tackle is going to be the first one that drops, and I'll be dropping that this week. So be out on the lookout for that. All right. And it's look at guard, cornerback, guard, cornerback. So it's like 2 cornerback boards. Guard, yeah. Guard, yeah. It's overwhelmingly the majority is looking like they want to see guard. So we'll do defensive tackle, then we'll do guard, and then we'll do cornerback for you. Okay? So that's what we'll do, our first 3, and then we'll go from there. Last year I did 6 or 7 big boards. I'm going to try and aim for that range again this year. The rest of my big boards, the positions you do not see that, videos of, those will be available to channel members as well as Patreons. All right. So any big board that doesn't make a video, it will be given to Patreons and channel members. All right. So, and that happens every year. So that's nothing new. Listen, I'm going to tell you this, I'm going to be honest with you. It's not happening, brother. It's not happening. I'm going to tell you why. Tyler Booker's a very, very intelligent player. He's a very good player, but he does not have the athleticism or the foot speed in open space. That's going to be too big of a problem for him on screens when he's asked to pull, with how fast everything's moving. That's going to be the problem for a guy like Tyler Booker in this offense. He's not a scheme fit. If you want me to be honest with you, he's just not a scheme fit. And that's because of his slow feet. And that's just because of his overall athleticism. He's a people mover. He's not a mover in open space. Go watch, I'm sure you can find highlights and clips, but go watch all 22 if you can. And go watch him trying to work out in space, trying to get to the second level, pulling. It's not strong. That's why I'm saying Will Campbell, Membo, and I throw Banks in there. Those guys move much better. They'll get to the landmarks much quicker. And that's going to be a problem for Tyler Booker in Miami. That's why I do not see him being a pick. I'm just going to be honest with you. Now, if he falls to you somehow, like in the second or third and the value's crazy, yeah, you make the pick. But yeah, try and think of this way. And he's obviously better than this player. I'm just talking about like movement and athleticism and stuff. Remember Solomon Kinley? So now Tyler Booker's a harder worker than Solomon Kinley. But I'm talking about, remember I had the struggle watching him pull? You remember the struggle about when he had to get into space? Very similar with Tyler Booker. So, yeah. And I think they would only take a tackle that can play guard, especially at 13. Like Membo can play tackle. Campbell, I don't care about the arm length. Look at the profile, look at the tape. He can play tackle. Kelvin Banks can play tackle. So they offer you that premium position versatility, whereas a guy who's strictly a guard does not. So that's why I do not see them. Yeah, I don't see them touching that. And I would draft, even in the second, I'm going to be honest with you. Given our system, what we want guys to do, what we need, call me crazy. I don't care. And, Tyler Booker as a guard is ranked higher than this guy for me by like one spot. But still, I would draft Jonas Savaiinaea at 48 over Tyler Booker. Like that, that's Jonah can play right guard, right tackle. He can move well in space. He's mean. He's nasty. He can pull for you. Like you saw his athleticism on display at the combine. That I would take that. I would take Jonas Savaiinaea, and I would take Savaiinaea off over Ratledge too. I've got Savaiinaea ranked higher. So, but Ratledge is in my top 5. Don't get that stressed. He's in my top 5. But Savaiinaea is in my top 5. Booker's in my top 5. Will Campbell's in my top 5. Will Campbell's the number 1 guard. If you convert him to guard, he's the best guard in this class. We're talking about like, I don't want to say Quentin Nelson levels, but we're talking like pretty damn near close. He's going to be an all-pro. He's going to be a damn good player. And another reason why you draft a Jonas Savaiinaea, man. I want to get you. They haven't noticed how they haven't restructured Austin Jackson. I'm trying to move off Austin Jackson after 2026. This guy can't stay healthy. Now I know they like Keon Smith. Miss me with that. And Patrick Paul, he doesn't fit the athletic profile of the Armsteads, the Connor Williams, the Aaron Brewers, even the Jacksons, or James Daniels for that matter. But yeah, I would take Jonas Savaiinaea. He could be your answer at right tackle, and you could make Austin Jackson hit the bricks after 2026. I'm just saying. I've been adamant about this. I wouldn't restructure Austin Jackson because I'm looking to get out of that. Now, I did a video like a little over a month ago? What was it, like a month and a half ago? About how I thought the Miami Dolphins should look into a trade for Joe Milton. Back then, I reported I was hearing it was like the word on the street was it is a 3rd round pick. Well, that got confirmed today. Tony Grossi, he came out and he said the Patriots' expected asking price is a 3rd round pick because he wrote an article about whether the Browns should trade for Joe Milton. Listen, I'm gonna be honest with you. I would offer them one of those 4th round picks. I'll offer you 116 for Joe Milton. I'd watch Joe Milton come into camp and beat out Zach Wilson. Oh, I love it. Oh, my God. Because it would happen. I guarantee you. But, yeah, I think the kids, like, honestly, I would have, let's say let's put this in perspective for a second. Again, I would have rather given pick 116 than $6 million to Zach Wilson. I'm not even lying. I like, that's what I would have done. That's $6 million. You could have given 4 of that to Azeez. Or you could have put that $6 million towards a better cornerback. I'm just saying, man. Like, I would have given up a 4th for Joe Milton. Ben, you look at that kid from what he looked like, in the preseason to that final game against Buffalo, man, the growth in Joe Milton was unbelievable. Because, I know they benched their starters in Buffalo, but in the preseason, in the third, fourth quarter, you're playing guys that are stocking shelves in Walmart in a couple weeks. In week 17, week 18, and you're playing second stringers. Those are legitimate NFL caliber talents. And Joe Milton was just disgusting. Like, he made some disgusting throws in that game. I mean, I just, man, the upside, the talent. I mean, unlike Zach Wilson, he hasn't been tainted, right? Like, Zach Wilson's been tainted by the New York Jets. I talk about this. Think of all the bad habits you got to coach up out of Zach Wilson right now. Think about it. From BYU, when he couldn't play in structure very well, to the Jets, where he didn't get very good coaching and they didn't make him play in structure any better, to he probably got good coaching last year from Sean Payton, but Sean Payton told you all he needed to tell you when he decided to give a 2-year, $12 million deal to Jarrett Stidham and let Zach Wilson walk. And Jarrett Stidham is not the athlete and does not have the arm Zach Wilson has, and they said, yeah, kick rocks. Why? Because Jarrett Stidham's better in structure, and they probably trust him more. So, I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know. I thought that would have been a better deal. My opinion. I'm one man. And I've said, hey, Justin, I've even said that. Kyle Trask, yeah, I would have rolled the dice on Kyle Trask. He's cheap. Was it like $2 million a year or something like that he ended up getting? He got really cheap contract. And he looked good against us in the preseason last year, if I may say so myself. So, all of that said, let's get into today's news. I want to talk about some signings. Then we're going to have a discussion. All right? And then we're going to look at something. So we're already over here, okay? So, yeah, Stidham's also a grown-up. I like that. So, let's start off with Drew Rosenhaus yesterday on, he loves these weekly segments. He's all about them. He always drops little nuggets, but this is from his weekly WSVN 7 Fox segment. And let me play the clip for you.
Should the Fins have re-signed Javon Holland?
Well, I would say, under the circumstances, at $15 million a year, that would have been great. I'm going to guess the Dolphins offered Holland a deal similar to that going into the season. That's just a guess. But it's a shame, for everybody involved. Holland was a second-round pick, super contributor, really had some moments where he was playing as well as virtually anyone on the team. And it's a shame to lose him in a $15 million a year that seemed to be a pretty manageable contract. But obviously the Dolphins thought it was too rich for their liking.
What's the latest on your client and former Dolphin Emmanuel Ogbah?
Yep. Emmanuel is still unsigned. I've stayed in touch with the Dolphins. The Dolphins have offered him a contract to come back, but we haven't been able to find common ground yet. And I don't think anything is imminent at this time between Emmanuel and the Dolphins.
What about Jeff Wilson Jr.?
They added Alexander Madison. Madison is a guy that has a similar profile to Jeff Wilson in terms of what they can contribute. So my guess is that that was a move where they decided to make Madison a priority over Jeff, but we're not ruling out the possibility of Jeff re-signing with the team.
So there you go. A couple things to take away there. Let's start off with Emmanuel Ogbah. Emmanuel Ogbah last year, he had a $3.25 million one-year deal with the Dolphins. Rosenhaus is saying that they can't come in with an agreement on money. I'm wondering if they're going a little bit lower than that $3 million. Now, He ended up playing in 16 games last year. I mean, he had clearly a better, well, if you go from sack production, it was the same, but from a tackle standpoint, Emmanuel Ogbah was better last year than he was in 2023. Now, obviously he wasn't near the 9 sacks he had in 2020 or 2021. But he made some impact plays last year. Now, as the season went on, it felt like he became a little bit of a lesser of a factor. I mean, again, he's going to be 32 this year. I just watched Azeez Ojulari, who everyone knows how much of a fan I was of him coming out last year. The kid's, he's going to be 25 in June. You're talking about crazy freaking upside for $4 million a year, about $750,000 more than what you paid Ogbah last year. And if he was willing to take $4 million from Philadelphia, what was he willing to take from Miami, considering state income tax? I don't know, man. I think, again, we're going to talk about it when we have the discussion here in a little bit. But to me, this is just, again, we're not growing. We're not. You could have upgraded. And now listen, I don't know how much a guy Zadarius Smith is asking for. But why not look into Zadarius Smith's market? It must not be that robust if Zadarius Smith is still on the market. Azeez Ojulari got barely any money. I would have looked at be looking at Zadarius Smith, before I even look at Emmanuel Ogbah. Maybe they have. I don't know. But man, I just think there's, I don't know, man. I think there's better guys. I mean, you can bring in here. This just feels like we're doing the same ish over and over again and expecting a different result. I've said this over and over and over and over and over again. I'd be more intrigued in you bringing in Matt Judon. You want to bring in someone who's over 30, go show me what Matt Judon's got. Guy played 17 games last year. Had a half sack more than Ogbah. I know they've liked Matthew Judon for quite a while. So, I don't know. It's just, here we go. It's the same. It's just the same stuff, man. They're going to bring back Emmanuel Ogbah. And, hey, listen. Now, in the flip side, would I rather you bring back a guy like Emmanuel Ogbah than a guy like Liam Eichenberg? Yeah, 110%. I mean, we don't even have to have that discussion. You know what I mean? That's not even that's not even a discussion. But even man, I don't know. I just thought it's like we're looking at the Deshaun Hand deal. How did you guys not sign Deshaun Hand? For how decent he was for you guys, you let Deshaun Hand go for a little over $3 million. And he was good for you last year. The contract's worth up to 3.35, but I think the base is 2.35? I don't know. I hope they haven't made any move on Ogbah because they're checking in on Zadarius Smith or Matt Judon. It's just, we're getting into the same ish over and over and over again. And we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it when we go into what we talk about next after that. Because when we get into the title of the show, we're going in. So, yeah, the Miami Dolphins. Now, with Jeff Wilson Jr., see my previous point. Why are we bringing back Jeff Wilson Jr. as a running back 4? It's the same thing I just went over with Ogbah. He's not that guy anymore. Stop playing friends and buddies with these guys. Move on. You had the will to do it with Raheem Mostert, and Drew Rosenhaus is saying there's still a chance he can come back. Man, I would have closed that door. Let Rosenhaus know, no, we don't want Jeff Wilson Jr. back. Now, speaking to what he said about Javon Holland, if you're a channel member or a Patreon, go over and check my latest update. I talk about what I've heard specifically about Javon Holland and free agency because, yeah, he was guessing, but they did not offer him $15 million a year. So go over and check that out if you're a Patreon or a channel member, all right? Because I do have an update on Javon Holland and that situation in the latest update that came out yesterday. Again, my C grade continues to look better and better. And I saw someone on Twitter was having an issue with me giving Ashton Davis a B- and Melifonwu a C+. Hey, I hate to be the one to tell you people, but yeah, Ashton Davis was the better signing. All right? Like, what are we discussing here? You know, now, first of all, I mentioned that I literally said after I did it, I'm clearly biased towards Ashton because I've loved him since he came out of Cal. Anyone who's watched me knows how much I loved him when I watched him light up the Oregon Ducks and Justin Herbert. Absolute stud. But Ashton Davis, I mean, we really want to get into this? Ashton Davis, he's been healthier, right? He started 22 games. He's played in 69. Melifonwu started 14 games and played in 37. What are we talking about? Melifonwu has 2 interceptions. Ashton Davis has 8. Like, you know, what are we discussing here? He's got more forced fumbles, does Ashton Davis. He's got more tackles, whether you want to count solo or combined. Ashton Davis has been the healthier and the better football player to this point than Melifonwu. I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, Melifonwu has a high ceiling, but so does Ashton Davis because he's a great athlete. And Melifonwu has been more productive up to this point in his career because it came out of the same draft class. And there's a reason why. I'm just going to be the one to tell you this. There's a reason why Ashton Davis went 68th and Melifonwu, he went 101. All right? Just saying. So, yeah, I'm going to give Ashton Davis a B- because A, I'm biased and he's been the better player and the healthier. I keep taking dubs. All right. Now, the Miami Dolphins, they made a move at cornerback. And this is what happened at cornerback. All right? The former Seahawks free agent cornerback Artie Burns reached agreement today on a 1-year deal with the Miami Dolphins. Burns, a former first-round pick from the University of Miami, where he was born and raised, now a homecoming. The deal was negotiated by Drew Rosenhaus and Robert Bailey. I mean, again, listen, here's the fact of the matter. The kid was a stud, an absolute stud his last year at the U. I mean, there ain't no doubt about it. I mean, holy. Now, remember, go all the way back. He had a knee injury. He wasn't able to complete all the drills, but then he had a pretty decent pro day, if I remember correctly, from what happened. So, now, I know he ran a 4.46 40 is what he was timed at. He was drafted 25th overall. I mean, he's, remember when he was drafted in 2016, he was the first cornerback the Steelers had selected in the first round since like 1997. All right. He was, the expectations were high on him. And basically, the reason why he just hasn't been able to live up to them, it's really just been about, well, there's a few things. So let me break this down with Artie Burns. Because I know people are gonna, I don't know. I look at this as a depth guy, but I mean, you look at it, he just 2018, 2019, he just had issues. Health was an issue for him, right? I know they declined. Like, I'm pretty sure they declined their 5th-year option on him. So, yeah. And I know they tried to move him different places. Like, I know he played a little safety. He plays, last year, again, he played mainly in the slot with Seattle. So I know even dating back to the Steelers, they tried to move him around. Right. Now they used him. He was more of a boundary guy in Pittsburgh. And then once he got out of Pitt, I mean, you go look, he's kind of turned into a slot guy the last few years. He's been relegated to more of a slot option. So I look at this as a guy who, he can contribute on special teams, and he can offer you backup slot snaps to Kader Kohou. So that's what I'm looking at him as. I don't see him as very much more. So, I don't know. I'm just not a, this one, we need cornerback help, and all they did was add cornerback depth. Like, I don't know. I'm telling you, the plan has got to be one of these corners. The plan has got to be one of these corners. Man, I'll tell you, Artie Burns looked like he was going to be, those first 2 seasons, he looked like he was going to be decent. And he just never really lived up to it. And it's really just been due to opportunity and injuries. That's basically what the issue has been with him. So, I mean, hey, hopefully he can be good as Calais Campbell was, bringing back an older U guy. So this is probably, when the numbers come out, they are not, this is going to be a backup type of deal. Like, let's be honest here. That's exactly what this is going to turn into. So, he's going to be competing with guys like Cam Smith and Storm Duck and maybe Ethan Bonner, but I got a feeling they're not huge fans of Ethan Bonner. I, in no way, shape, or form, see Artie Burns as a sufficient enough replacement for a guy like Kendall Fuller. And I've been adamant about this. I don't want Jahdae Barron at 13. I want Will Johnson at 13. Now, I know Texas put Jahdae on the boundary last year, but he was primarily a slot guy until last year. And I don't know, man. I think 13's too rich, and that would be just falling in love with the traits. So I like Jahdae. Like, I'd take Jahdae in the 20s. I'd take him in the 20s, 110%. But, here's just, another guy. He had that knee injury. He's had some knee injuries, some ankle issues. He really had that knee thing he had going on in 2019. Artie Burns, it was not good. I know he got placed on injured reserve last year for that toe injury he had. But I know the knee injury in 2019, it wasn't that great, and they ended up not giving him that 5th-year option. So, now, to what I remember and what I know, he's never had like a major surgery, or, at least as far as I can remember, I don't remember him having a major injury. Like, I don't remember. I know he had that nagging knee injury in 2019, but I don't know of any like major ACL tears or anything like that. Now, I'd have to do more research on that, but yeah, I don't. It's a club-friendly deal. And once again, like most moves in free agency, this does not stop you from drafting a corner, period. But they've got a guy who's been banged up a bunch of times throughout his career. And, I mean, we'll see how it goes. I'm not expecting a ton out of this. So, if this guy gives me better than what Sear Neal gave me, or gives me, better than Sear Neal in terms of similar play but less penalties, then I'll be happier than a pig, and you know what. And you're probably not going to hear much from me about it. Now, something I do want to talk about here. Let's talk about it. All right. Have the Miami Dolphins become status quo in free agency up until this point? I mean, they made the James Daniel signing. They made the Ryan Stonehouse signing. They made the Nick Westbrook-Ikhine signing. But, like, once we go past that, Jordan Poyer and Marcus May, injury histories, blah, 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 blah. One's aging. They just swapped them out for Ashton Davis and Melifanu. Guys with high upside, but injury histories. And could lead to Patrick McMorris taking snaps. Liam Eichenberg, Jackson Carman. Guys who have proven to you, when given legitimate in-game reps, are not capable of starting. They bring them back. Why? Well, we're comfortable with them. They're cheap. And with that being the main reason. And the question now becomes, and I've talked about this, is this because they believe all they got to do is a little bit of a retool and a little tweak because they're that close to being a contender, health permitting? Or as Stephen Ross said, enough is enough. Give me my checkbook back. I've talked about this. And I keep seeing these moves, and I see the lack of restructures. And I ask myself, has the Bank of Ross limited their credit limit? Because look at our roster right now. I want you to take a second and just look at our roster right now. All right? Your starting line, if it happens today, is Armstead, Eichenberg, Brewer, James Daniels, and Austin Jackson. Your main depth, Patrick Paul, Jackson Carman, Andrew Meyer, Chasen Hines, and Larry Borum. Okay, you added James Daniels, but then what? Everything else feels it's exact same. Tight end room. We all knew how terrible Julian Hill was. Well, it's Jonnu Smith, Julian Hill, and Farrell Brown, who probably offers you even less after the catch than Durham Smythe. Seems pretty status quo to me. Look at our wide receiver room. Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Nick Westbrook, Ikhine, Malik Washington, D. Eskridge, Eric Izakama, Tariq Black, Tajay Washington. That has a little bit more upside because we don't know what Tajay Washington is. A second year of D. Eskridge and Nick Westbrook Ikena is a better signing than OBJ. So I'll give you a little bit of an uptick on that. Tua Tagovailoa and Zach Wilson. Tyler Huntley's been to the Pro Bowl. Zach Wilson has a terrible record as a starter. Zach Wilson was a quarterback 3 last year, not even a quarterback 2, and you made him one of the highest paid quarterback 2s in the NFL. Running back room. Achane, Wright, and Alexander Madison. Status quo. I think Raheem Mostert's a better player than Alexander Madison. The reason why they went to Alexander Madison, because he accepts his role as a backup. Raheem probably thinks he's a starter. But that might even be worse than status quo. Our defensive ends and zero tech. Zach Seiler and Matt Dickerson are your defensive ends on the roster right now. And Neil Farrell can kick into, that's it. Those are your interior defensive linemen on, because they're staying status quo because they're waiting on Calais Campbell, who is probably going to get a little bit of a raise. Edge rushers. Jalen Phillips, Chop Robinson, Muhammad Kamara, William Bradley King, Derek McGlendon, Bradley Chubb, Quentin Bell, Cameron Good, Grayson Murphy, trying to bring back Emmanuel Ogbah. If that ain't status quo, I don't know what is. Inside linebacker. Jordan Brooks, Tyrell Dodson, KJ Britt, who's just basically a swap for Walker. You wouldn't trust either in coverage. Both offer you run support. Channing Tindall and Daquan Jackson, status quo. Cornerback. Your 2 boundary starters today would be Ramsey and either Cam Smith or Storm Duck. Kidder Kohu in the nickel. Ethan Bonner, now Artie Burns. Jason Maitre, Ryan Cooper. Isaiah Johnson. That's pretty much status quo. It might even be a little bit worse because a healthy Kendall Fuller really boosts that. Safety room. Ifiatu Melifanu, Ashton Davis, Elijah Campbell, Patrick McMorris, Jordan Colbert. Remains to be seen because, like I've said, if Melifanu and Davis can stay healthy, you could have a better starting duo than last year, but that's a big question. Like, look across the board. Have we significantly improved at any position when you look across the board? Like, that's the thing. Actually sit back. You can say, okay, we got better at right guard and wide receiver 3. And a punter. That's it. Everything else is pretty much status quo. And again, the question becomes, is that, and I've said this, is it because some of these people are delusional enough to think that they can run this roster back with as minimal tweaks as possible and they're a contender? Or has Ross closed the checkbook? And, you know, Brandon Shore is the right-hand man of Stephen Ross. He's the man who gets creative with contracts and restructures. And I don't see him out here getting super creative. In fact, to me, it looks like they're trying to fill out the roster as much as possible with as little of restructures as possible. And the only reason they restructured a guy like Bradley Chubb is because he wouldn't have been here either way. They would have cut him and got their money back. Like, think about this. If you're Terron Armstead and you're sitting here and you and Chubb just cleared this bunch of money and you look at them and you say, okay, this is what you did. It's like the same roster as last year, except you don't have the leadership of Calais Campbell. That's a big one. Like, that is a massive one. And you better hope guys like Bradley Chubb stay healthy so they can be a voice in that locker room if Tyreek gets out of line. Like, look at our roster right now. And I know football injuries happen. But let's talk about guys with major injury histories here, okay? Let's talk about it. Teron Armstead, starter. Austin Jackson, starter. James Daniels coming off an Achilles tear. That's 3 of your 5 starters on the offensive line. Tua Tagovailoa can't stay healthy. Okay? Those are 4 of your major 11 starters on offense that can't stay healthy. And your answer was Zach Wilson to Tua, Liam Eichenberg to James Daniels. And then on defense, so that's 4 of the 7. Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, Malafanu, Davis. 4 of your main 11 starters on defense. So 8 of your 22 starters. And remember, you haven't figured out left guard yet. You haven't figured out your defensive end and your nose tackles. So those, you can't even really count those positions. So it's technically, if you want to really go there, it's 8 of 19 known positions. You're depending on these guys staying healthy, and the contingency plans behind them are not overly great. And these are guys with major injury histories, not minor ones. So, I mean, you start putting that into perspective, that's crazy. And again, I say 8 out of 22, but 3 of those positions being left guard, another starting defensive end, and a nose you haven't figured out. So it's really 8 of 19. That's crazy. And again, when you look at the contingency plans for these 8 players, you want to pull your hair out even harder. I don't know, man. We'll see how it goes. I mean, hey, listen. If Ross is closing the checkbook because he's saying, you guys told me last year heading into that offseason, we were a legitimate contender and we barely missed out on the division. Well, put your money where your mouth is. I mean, kudos to Ross but I don't know. I honestly think there is some delusion in there that they legitimately think they can run a lot of this back and go with a few tweaks. So, and I am him. Don't say we won't have the injury bug as last season. I mean, when you talk about, look at the since 2020. I mean, hell, go back to Ryan Tannehill in 2016 when we got the unicorn line. Tannehill couldn't stay healthy. His best season, he couldn't stay healthy because, he took sports medicine at Texas A&M, and he decided to go with that stem cell treatment instead of getting the injury repaired. I mean, we just haven't had luck, bro. I mean, you can go before. I mean, I was originally gonna say go back to 2020 and look at all the games missed by starters, and we're at the top. You can go all the way back to 2020, but man, you go back to 2016. We just nothing. Stars never align for us, especially when it becomes something like the injury bug. I mean, we were sitting here watching teams like the Vikings last year. Their franchise quarterback that they got drafted goes down, but look what they get out of Sam Darnold. And I know it fizzled out at the end there, but look at what they did with all the injuries they had. They were there were legitimate teams out here with heavy injuries, but look at what they were performing better than us. And why does it come down? What does this come down to? Kevin O'Connell's probably a better coach than Mike McDaniel. That's just what it is. It's like, why can Mahomes make it work with so much less than a lot of others? It's because he has Andy Reid. Andy Reid balances that out. Anyways, smash that like button. Subscribe if you are new. I will see each and every one of you on the next one. Hey, if you want to donate, I just started a new PayPal for y'all. PayPal.me/Phinside NFL, because I know a lot of people love that method. So PayPal is back. If you'd like to donate, become a Patreon or a channel member. Get my latest update that I dropped yesterday. Until next time, you already know what time it is. Fins up all day, every day. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you're new. See you on the next one.